Hello, I'm Prism and I have been learning the skill of drawing and painting for 7 years now. It's insane how fast time flies. Truly. One day it is 2017 and I pick up the pencil as a bored teenager, and now it is 2024 and I am 3 years away from having a decade of experience. Crazy. I'm gonna be honest, life has been difficult and art has taken a bit of a backseat for me this year, but I still think I learned a lot in the little bit of time I had to be an artist. At this point, I'm just hoping for better days and for some not so great things to end soon. And I hope the same way for you, watching this video, going into 2025. To commemorate the 7 years of joy I've had being an artist, I will share 7 important lessons I've gained that have had a big impact in my recent work. The first of these is texture. I love textures. Now, as a beginner, I tended to avoid texture a lot. I was told that it was of a lesser importance when compared to concepts such as values, shapes, and color, and I saw firsthand with online trends what happens when textured brushes are overused. Because of that, I steered clear from using a lot of it in my early stages, and I think that helped a lot. It shaped my art to be bold and recognizable even without textures, from just simple building blocks. And I think that's a really important skill to master as an artist. However, recent paintings of mine I feel like they lack haptic quality to them. The materials I illustrate often feel too similar in rendering, and I now look to expand my artistic horizons by introducing more textures. And my god, was it really fun when I did that. Now, there are many different ways that you can go about adding texture to your work. I use all of these depending on what situation I'm in or what look I'm going for. The first is the simple method of just painting everything by hand. Now, I tend to not really use this a lot unless I really want a certain specific look or pattern for my work, but you can really use this to have a lot of control over what you're painting. It's not really great for really expansive and repetitive textures, so I won't really use it for that, like scales, skin, and things like that. The next method is, I guess, more in line with that, and it is textured brushes. Like I said, there was a bit of a wave when artists were, I think, overusing this a little bit with skin and things like that. And I didn't think it looked the most natural, because you have to remember that when you're adding these artificial textures to your work, you must take into consideration the style that you're using it in. Like if you have a very blocky and very stylized style, then it's not really ideal to add really realistic textures to your skin, like pores and things like that. Unless, of course, that is a specific look that you're going for. But unless there's a specific reason you're doing that, this incongruence doesn't really look great, in my opinion. So yeah, just keep that in mind. The next method is using lasso tools. You can use the selection tool to create various shapes and then paint it in using your brushes. You can always use these techniques in combination, which is always great. And the last and my most favorite method recently is using images. Now, this is a bit of a controversial topic in the art community. These photo bashing techniques don't have the greatest reputations because of the various controversies of artists using unlicensed images or images that they don't have rights to. And I think the solution really just boils down to using your own images. It's very simple, just take your own photos, or if you're gonna use something that you didn't take, please make sure that it is okay to use under copyright laws. Yeah, but I think that's a little too complicated for me, and I think a lot can go wrong when you're doing that, so I personally just like to shoot my own photos and use them for photo bashing. You can use the color selection tools, or you can just use blending modes to overlay your image on top of your artwork, and this can really create an interesting array of textures that would otherwise not be possible if you just paint everything by hand, because that would be too tedious. I love using this for foliage, for leaves, and for wood and rocks and everything that is organic, basically. Just again, make sure to use your own photos and yeah, avoid all that drama. And another thing to keep in mind is that texture is not completely separate from the concepts of values, shape, edges, and color. Like for example, when you have a matte surface or texture, you will have a lot more of a narrow dynamic range, which will mean that the lights will be a lot dimmer and it will not be much different from the darkest darks. Whereas when you compare it to something like metal, which is very reflective, the brightest highlights can be pure and stark white, while the darkest darks can be pitch black shadows, you know? So just keep that in mind and make sure that you integrate texture to the other concepts and not just add it as something that is completely separate without consideration of these values, shapes, edges, and colors of your work. And yeah, that's kind of it when it comes to texture. Next. storytelling is more important than style. There, I said it. Cue the hate comments. As artists that grew online basically and took a lot of the advice that we have from videos on YouTube or tutorials on Instagram, I think there's this trend that is a little, I think, not very productive, which is to focus overly on your art style. Now, I always get the intention behind it because people want a very distinctive brand that can separate them from the other million people that are posting. However, you have to remember that the story you create is much more important, in my opinion, over the visual style that you're creating it in. Does that make sense? Like, for example, take something like Arcane. Arcane, as we know, is a very visually striking show, and it's grown to be very popular because of that. It's a very interesting mix of different mediums and different aesthetics. However, I think that Arcane's success would not be at its level had it not been a very well-written show. At its core, it's still a very interesting story of different people with interesting backgrounds and motivations. Now, would Arcane be as successful as it is had it not been very visually stunning? Of course not. However, I think that the opposite could not be said. The visual style should always supplement the story. It should not be the other way around. And also, you have to remember that good art is not just good to look at, or nice to listen to, or pleasing to watch. Good art is always memorable. I think that with the fast pace of content production that we have now, we often forget about that, and our focus is solely on pumping out as much content as we want. There's not a lot that I see that is really memorable, and I think going into this year, I think I want to focus on that more. Creating images that people will remember and will inspire them to create, rather than something that is just visually pleasing to look at, without any substance that will separate it from the other pretty posts online. No hate to anyone focusing on style, of course, I love focusing on my style too, but it is not something that I actively prioritize over everything else. Number 3, art is difficult and that's okay. So recently there was this artist that was under a lot of fire for allegedly orchestrating a pyramid scheme, which I'm not really going to discuss whether I think it's a pyramid scheme or not. However, I think it is a great launching point, I guess, for this next topic. Art is a very difficult thing to do, whatever people try to tell you. Right now, I think more than ever, we have this wave of online influencers and gurus trying to tell us that we can change our lives if we just follow a few steps or hack into the system of our brains or watch their really expensive online course behind their paywall and change our lives with that. And I think there's a lot that can be said about that, especially for artists in our current time, where art is being stolen and it is being mass-produced by greedy thieves. We're all a little lost in our journey, and I guess some guidance and clarity is all we seek. And they seemingly provide it to us with their well-edited videos and interesting terms and concepts. However, a thing to keep in mind is that their success does not even stem from them following their own advice. They are successful because they give the advice, and they get a lot of views online by baiting you into this fantasy of a better life. Whatever they tell you, we must remember that it is not just work that gets people to successful places. There's nepotism, scams, deception, theft, and to say that it is your product or your advice that will automatically solve all their problems, I just find that very bothersome. And number 4, take inspiration from photography and film. Film and photography are your best friends. I've been taking a lot of inspiration recently from films and photography and YouTubers actually that discuss these concepts. And it's come to my realization that film, photography, and illustration are really foundationally very similar. They require very similar skill sets with composition, lighting, and storytelling. I've been watching a lot more films recently, and I think it's really been healing, I guess. Just having another source of inspiration, because I've been kind of burnt out recently because of the amount of work that I've been doing. It's just a fun new thing that has not only helped me with burnout, but has also helped me with reinforcing what I already know with composition, lighting, and storytelling and all that. There's this really popular artist online, and he goes by the username GoxArt, and I really love his videos. It's this sort of intersection of film and illustration, and I really love it. And as you may have noticed, the aspect ratio of this video is a little bit different from the other ones that I usually do. It's a bit more of a cinematic aspect ratio, I guess. I've learned a lot of different things from color grading, and I've been taking these ideas and these techniques from film into my own art, which is always great. It's really fun. Next, protect your art from thieves. Yeah, it's really unfortunate that it is 2025 and I now have to say this as a tip online, but there are now people who will steal your identity. You must do what you can in order to safeguard your work from it. We are still not there yet with 100% protection. However, there are many things that we can do to minimize or mitigate the damage that these people can do to your art. One of these is web glaze or glaze, just glaze. You can use it to protect your art from mimicry, basically. Your art style from being mimicked. And there's also this thing called nightshade, which is basically a poison, quote unquote, a poison for these AI training models that can really discourage a lot of these data scrapers from taking your art from you. So yeah, that's been really helpful, and I've been just really grateful to the creators of these from University of Chicago. I've been seeing a lot of really popular artists neglect doing this, and I've been a little disappointed. But that's fine. I get what they mean when they say that it's not really guaranteed that this will protect you from the art thieves. However, I think we must also consider the fact that using these will not only show solidarity to the creators of Webglaze and Nightshade, it can also help them with improving their models and further upgrading our protection levels. So yeah, I think it's really unfortunate that art is now just seen as fast food, essentially. Our works are now being taken and mass-produced like it didn't even mean anything other than its monetary value. And I think it's time we fight back and put an end to that. I just hope that some permanent good comes out of this situation at least, and people learn to not only protect their own, but also respect others' work and value it as well. This becomes kind of a great point to jump off of when leading to number 6. Support others the way you want to be supported. Like I said, it's been tough recently for artists, and I think we must do the best we can as a community to uplift each other, because at the end of the day, it's still gonna be us with each other. At this point, everybody is trying to exploit us with these AIs, and it can be as simple as just liking a post or liking a video on YouTube or subscribing or commenting or sharing, whatever. But yeah, in all seriousness, if you want your art to be supported, I think it should start with yourself and the way you treat others. So just go out there and interact with people and have it be known to them that their art is being appreciated by others, It's easy to get caught up with this nonchalant behavior online, with trying to be mysterious and all, but I think we must utilize social media the way it is intended to be, to create connections with people, rather than destroying it permanently by unnecessary competition. So yeah, when you see an artist that really put a lot of effort into their work, just like their post or comment on it or share it, I don't know. You can also support their commissions or buy prints from them. There are many different ways to show your solidarity, and it doesn't always have to be monetary. Even just sending them a message or a nice comment. We are all at different stages of our lives, and as we all know, not every part of it will be easy. Sometimes all it takes is just something nice from a stranger or even someone familiar to change your whole day and create these pockets of joy in really dark times. You'll never know what it can do for them. I think just being aware of that really helps in ushering this new habit of being supportive of others. Number 7, explore multiple subject matters. Now this goes kind of hand in hand with everything else I said. There's this really popular artist online. I don't know how to pronounce her name. I'll show it on screen. And he once said that in order to be great at painting portraits, you must learn how to paint flowers. And I never understood what that meant until recently. And I think it really all boils down to inspiration. Again, let's go back to Arcane. Arcane is a very interesting medium, and part of that is because it pulls from many different sources of inspiration. It's a 3D show, basically, which is very commonly done nowadays. It makes that interesting by taking visual cues from oil painting and even comic books, incorporating that flawlessly into their visual language. And when we go back to that flower analogy, it starts to make a lot of sense, because when you only learn how to paint portraits, you are essentially just rehashing what is already there and what has already been created by other people. When you explore other subject matters, you can pull different inspirations from those subjects and infuse it to your own art style of portraiture, therefore creating something new and something interesting, making you a better portrait painter in the end. It's those little things that really add nuance to an art style, those little hints of inspiration from different sources that I think add up to create your interesting look. That is how you create an art style. While you can certainly do that by just taking very specific things like the way someone draws hands, the way another person draws faces, and putting it together, I think it's a much more productive and a much more interesting journey, I guess, to pull from different vague sources of inspiration that are not always so obvious. That is how we create interesting and unique styles. I guess that's something that I learned a lot, and something that I've been practicing for a very long time, and something that has helped me a lot with improving my art in general, not just my style. Also the range of subject matters that I discuss with my art. It also helps with that. I think that is it. I don't really have much else to say other than, I guess, good luck for this year. I hope you keep on working hard on yourself in a way that is kind and understanding and full of love. I hope you learned a lot. If you enjoyed this video, it helps a lot for my channel for you to like, comment, and subscribe. I'd love to know what more you want from my videos. I have so much planned for this year, and I hope you guys enjoy it as much as I do. Thank you so much. Happy painting!